Up next, we have an announcement from the Center for Finance, Technology and Entrepreneurship on the world's largest Fintech Job Report. So we'd like to hand the time over to Huy Nguyen Trieu, co-founder of the Center for Finance, Technology and Entrepreneurship.
Hello, it's a real pleasure to be on stage at Singapore Fintech Festival again this year. And this time, I will share with you about the world's first Fintech Job Report. One of my hats is co-founder of CFTE, and with more than 100,000 professionals trained in fintech, artificial intelligence, or open banking, we have quite a good idea of the roles that our alumni have, either in fintech startups, banks, regulators, or tech companies. However, until now, there was not really a macro analysis of all the jobs in fintech, and this is what we did at CFTE by analyzing the jobs offered by the 225 largest fintech companies. After 3 months of analysis, if I had to summarize the report, that would be tech is eating finance. And I will tell you more about it. This report should be useful to, of course, those looking for a job in fintech, but also those hiring in fintech, the organizations interested in the future of jobs, and not just in fintech, and more generally, anybody in financial services. So, let me take you through our findings. Our research focuses specifically on the jobs of fintech companies, so not financial institutions, for example. Fintech is a sector that, as you know, has grown considerably during the last 10 years, with more than $200 billion invested in the fintech startups, and this is not slowing down. This has led to a very large and growing industry, with 225 companies worth more than $1 billion, including quite a few worth more than $50 billion, such as Adyen, Stripe, Square, Ant, or Tencent. Collectively, these 225 companies employ more than 300,000 people and are hiring an additional 40,000 people. Please note that 40,000 is the number of jobs advertised today, and as these positions get filled up, they advertise for more. So we estimate that they might be hiring between 80,000 to 100,000 people this year, which shows the huge need for talents in the industry. We analyzed the jobs of these 225 companies, and our first reaction was that it would be a very, very difficult project. The reason is that there is no taxonomy of jobs in fintech, unlike traditional financial services. For example, the roles in a private bank are very well defined, from client advisor to compliance officer, because these organizations have been around for a long time, and so the structures across organizations have standardized quite a bit. So for example, a client advisor can easily move from Citi Private Bank to UBS, for example. For fintech startups, which are very, very young companies, jobs have not been standardized in that way. For example, the Revolut team went from just a handful of people to almost 3,000 in 6 years, but its organization hugely depends on the specific way that they grew their business. Nevertheless, across all these companies, we found 14 main job families, which include more than 100 job roles. These 14 families go from legal to engineering, from product management to compliance. If we look at these 14 job families, they might be a bit confusing. They will be, however, much clearer if we organize them in that way. First, the jobs that are common to most companies. Secondly, the jobs that are found in tech companies. And thirdly, the jobs found in financial institutions. In the first category, the generic jobs, the main job families are human resources, legal, finance, and customer service. In jobs of tech companies, we find the tech jobs such as engineering or IT and operations, But there are also, of course, non-tech jobs in tech companies, such as digital marketing or business development. And finally, the jobs we find in financial institutions. These are mainly compliance and what we call core finance. So if the fintech was a challenger bank, it could be treasury. If it was an insurtech, underwriting. In other words, the core of the business. What is striking at first sight is that most of the job families in fintech are jobs of tech companies. 8 families of tech companies versus 2 for finance. So what about not the number of job families, but the number of jobs themselves? We looked at the jobs advertised based on the types of companies, for example, challenger banks, insurtech, cryptocurrencies, or buy now, pay later. And we find actually a similar trend. Jobs of tech companies represent from 70 to 90% of the jobs, with half to 2/3 being tech jobs, and the rest non-tech. On the other hand, jobs similar to financial services only represent 10 to 20% of the jobs, which is why we could summarize this report in one sentence, and that is, technology is eating finance, in the sense that fintech companies are at their core tech companies much more than finance companies. So how can one get into fintech, and what are the skills required? If we think of fintech as tech companies, certainly the first thing that would come to mind would be hard skills such as programming. And this is definitely true. Hard skills are really important in fintech, but it's important to remember it is not just programming, because half are non-tech roles. Hard skills could be, for example, digital marketing, or search engine optimization, or wireframing. Others could be finance skills such as anti-money laundering or treasury. So hard skills are very important and will hugely depend on the job role. However, what we found is that some skills tend to be overlooked by candidates, whereas there are those which are the most important to fintech startups. And those are mindset, soft skills, and industry knowledge. Fintech startups, being tech companies, they have the culture of tech startups. And this is usually one of the biggest blockers for fintech startups to hire candidates from larger organizations. So adaptability, resilience, and proactivity are very big requirements in fintechs. Second one is soft skills, with the two that are present in almost every single job postings being communication skills and collaboration. Again, this is to be considered in the context of startups where decisions change quickly and diverse people are being onboarded almost on a daily basis. And finally, industry knowledge. This might seem obvious, but remember that fintech startups are really tech companies. So industry knowledge is much more than, for example, understanding what is a challenger bank or how artificial intelligence is used in compliance, but it's also about having the broader vocabulary that these companies use. So let me now summarize the main points of the job report. First, jobs in fintech are growing tremendously together with the industry. Secondly, fintech jobs are much closer to jobs of tech companies. And then finally, to get into fintech, hard skills are important, but there's much, much more, and that's the mindset and culture of tech startups, soft skills in communication and collaboration, and finally, knowledge of the fintech industry. I would say that for anyone interested in jobs in fintech, or I would say more generally in financial services, tech is eating finance is a very good starting point to think of what is important. If you are interested to know more, you can download the whole report by Googling CFTE Fintech Job Report, or send an email to fintechjobreport@cfte.education. Thank you for listening, and I wish you the best in this exciting new world of finance.